Okay, welcome to today's live stream. Shall we? Sorry for being a little bit late. Um, I was eating food. All right. I'm going to close the window. That's a bit loud. But I'm using like 2 layers of noise cancellation software, so it doesn't matter. All right. So the question today is this new lower low new trend, which we will get to momentarily. Or now. I'll do now. Why not? So what do we care about? Essentially, we have this compressionary period, and to my knowledge, people are drawing comparisons to the previous low for Bitcoin back in 2020 when we were drawing this floor here, right? Where we have 1 test, 2 tests, 3 tests. When you trickle on the bottom, failed upward test, or failed breakout to the upside, and then a break of the trend line. Does that constitute new trend? Some would argue it does. If we take a look at the BLX chart and we scroll ourselves all the way back over here, back when this was considered high, 20,000, holy moly. 2017 was a wild time. I went to New York that Christmas. It was crowded and disgusting, and I hated it. But I remember looking at the television in the subway and commented on wow, new high, and they were like, it's a bubble. Well, they were right. Perspective, what a fun thing. Right, okay, here's the thing, like the .com bubble was a bubble, right? It was a bubble, but here's the thing about bubbles, guys. Just because you're in a bubble doesn't mean the asset class is dead. This was a bubble. You had a massive move to the upside. Up here, we get to say, oh, it's a bubble. And then they never touched the NASDAQ composite again, where they could have just waited 10 years and made a massive profit. So on a long enough timeline, yes, Bitcoin is going up. All right. Holy five. Are we? Should not have made this comparison. Speaking of bubbles, oh dear. Oh boy, are we going down this route right now? Oh man. Oh boy. We don't want to do that. It's very possible this is on a long and depressing mean reversion for the next 2 years. So we haven't seen this kind of overextension since 2001. Right, what were we calling the housing market crisis over here? Just this little, fuck. Yeah, this is gonna get nasty, boys. Rule of thumb, in a bear market, buy and hold for 5 years and you will be in profit. That is my analysis for the major technicals. All right, move on. Short-term plays, it's way too volatile unless you're going to try like a bullish mean reversion based on a bearish expansion, which we could probably do. Just based on 200 period, reasonable. Keep an eye out. Okay, so let's actually talk about this move here. What do we care about? I don't care about the wave PM. So the information we're looking for is compression across the board. One thing to note is we are expanding across the board in all our periods, and it is all bearishly weighted. Yeah, all our periods are weighted below that 100 value, so this is technically true expansion to the downside. Even though there isn't full compression, it is giving implications of downward trend. So this new expansion is actually going to generate a period of mass for us, which will allow us to generate a pivot. And it's very clean here in the lower time frames, which is a blessing. So what we care about is this forming pivot, which is currently being defined off the 70 period. Go to the 1 hour, get a bit of high resolution. Yeah, so this is very nice. So we have a clear defined trend pivot, currently at the 3.2 of the CLCP. I would not be surprised if we saw a very brief kickback to previous price before further compression, or if this blasted past, we would have our 3.2 standard deviation for long still expanded period, which would end up looking something like that. Bounce down onto this pivot before a shorter compressionary period as we see our trend pivot slowly catch up to price as this progresses downward. So, of course, all of that changes is if this pivot is immediately broken, then Bitcoin is back in the clear, and we can see lateral mean inversion, which is a neutral implication of up to 38.48 to 39.90. So, clean chart. All right, let's take a look at ETH. This is my radial bristle brush. It cost $38. These things are incredibly expensive, but they're capable of polishing fine metals without any polish. And honestly, just that cleanliness factor makes them incredibly valuable. It's all proprietary, so the off-brand ones suck. But they let you make dice extremely smooth. See, look at that. So it's as if you had a flexible sander that could get into all the nooks and crannies. This one's super big. I have a bunch of smaller ones for fun details. ETH is actually bullish. Yeah, so the reason for this is ETH's correlation coefficient is essentially always going to be noise because it's a higher cap. And as such, very capable of maintaining its own price outside of Bitcoin's influence. Looks very noisy though. I wouldn't be surprised if ETH just ignores this current move by Bitcoin. Let's take a look at BNB. My oh my, I wish I just held my BNB from 2017. That would have been nice. Like I bought like $500 of BNB for transaction fees. 2017, that's off. It's a year, 2018. I think, if I remember correctly, it's around October 2018. Yeah, so essentially I bought in here for transaction fees. I wrote it to here and like, hey, that's enough profit for me. And then I just held like $20 at a time as I traded. Wild times, man. Interesting fact, this is a complete compression. Like, this is full potential energy. As soon as we get a weighted direction on our CCI, this can and will trend significantly. So I would not be surprised if this breaks positively. Do expect a higher high for sure. Just not seeing the indication quite yet for that call to be made. So we got TRX. TRX was my first altcoin. I bought it at 52 Satoshis. Oh, it's actually a positive break. I don't think this is actually going to do anything. Mostly because the prior 5 breaks have all immediately failed. So Yeah, currently overextended. No buy point yet. Just keep a look on the locks before you pivot. XPD. Palladium. Speaking of palladium, I got my catalytic converter installed. Very proud of myself. I bought an oxygen sensor, so it actually works. My battery's dead, so we'll get to try it sometime in the next week. So, the car debacle is finally over. I'm proud of myself. All right. This is very high volatility. Not seeing a pivot because this is contrary expansion, where you have immediate upward expansion followed by immediate downward expansion on a lower time frame, and that leads to a very messy chart. So I don't think I have anything for you right now. Like by comparison, like this upward expansion here is very clean and concise, and its resulting mean inversion is clean and concise. Or this bearish expansion is clean and concise. There's a nice mean inversion pivot, and mean inverts. You okay? I'm watching you. Or is this? This is an immediate spike followed by an immediate fail. So that's going to be it. Been a pleasure. I'll talk to you all within the next 2 days. I hope you guys have a beautiful afternoon. Okay. Yeah, Kat over here is currently giving his thoughts on how he thinks the weekly 500 moving average is more likely, which it's about $10,000. Um, yeah. Yeah, so Cat's very bearish. I think we'll get confirmation of that pretty soon. All right. You guys have a good